Hi friends, it's Valerie. Welcome back to this week's What's for Dinner. If you are new here, I would love if you would hit that subscribe button and join my YouTube family. And don't forget to leave a like or a comment down below because it really does help my channel. This week's dinners are cut a little bit short. Couldn't get a full week's worth in because it was my boyfriend's birthday. We went out and we also did Universal this week. So yeah, a little bit shorter, but I hope you enjoy the meals that I have for you. And don't forget, I do still want to do the whole family dinners for YouTube thing, so check my description box down below for my email address and go ahead and send your recipes in so we can get that going. I know I don't mention that enough, but if you guys would like to send some recipes, go ahead and do that. Let's just get started. On this night, I kept it super simple. I had some leftover chicken breast, so I just chopped that up, shredded some cheddar cheese, and made some quesadillas out of it. And then I used some of that Sam's Club guac packs, and they're pretty good. It was my first time actually trying them. It wasn't bad for on a pinch. Of course, it doesn't beat, homemade fresh guac. And then I just had some strawberries on the side. This was a quick, easy, and delicious meal. For this next meal, I actually saw it on TikTok, and I thought, oh wow, I really have to try this. You just take some frozen corn dogs, and I wanted to do tater tots, so I put them all in my air fryer at the same time. I did 350 degrees. Of course, that's going to vary depending on your air fryer. You can also cook these just whatever method works best for you. If you make them in the oven, then go ahead and do that. And once they're cooked up, I just went ahead and cut them down the middle. We're still leaving them on the stick, and then so cut them down the middle lengthwise and not all the way through, and then I'm using just American cheese slices and just stick that right in the middle there. That's gonna start to begin to melt, and then I just warmed up a can of hot chili, just pour that there, and that's gonna also help the cheese melt. And of course, I just needed some onions. I had a red onion, so I chopped that up, put it on top. This was so good. This was like a mixture of course, chili cheese dog, but you still had that crunchy crust from like the corn dog, and it's like slightly sweet. It was a really delicious combination. I loved how easy it was, something a little bit different. You eat it right on the stick, kind of the same way. Of course, you do have to hold it like with the toppings, upward so they don't all fall over the place, but this is definitely worth a try. For this recipe, I'm taking 2 acorn squashes. These are about 2 pounds each. I'm cutting them in half. It's a little bit of a struggle, but I did cut them in half, and then you'll just scoop the seeds and guts out of the middle. Put a little bit butter, like line them with a little bit of butter in there, and I'm placing them in the bottom of my Instant Pot with a cup of water on the bottom, and they are sitting on the trivet. I did cook these for 10 minutes and they need 5-minute natural release later, but next time I would either skip the natural release or maybe cut it back a couple minutes. They were a little softer than maybe I would have liked. They were kind of falling apart, but it still was fine, thankfully. And while those are cooking, I went ahead and diced up 2 apples. So I have a core, but I didn't use it. You can use it if you'd like. I just kind of cut around it. It's perfectly fine. Just cutting that into a nice like rough chop, kind of small pieces. That's going to depend up to you, of course, if you want them thicker or not. And then you'll need 1 yellow onion diced. I had a large onion, so I'm just kind of like doing whatever looks like a good amount to me. And then you'll see here, this is the natural release part. And like I said, I would either skip that next time. But then pull them out of the pot, place a couple tablespoons of butter in the bottom, and place it on the saute mode. Then you're going to put your diced onion in there. I gave that a stir to get coated with that butter so those can begin to saute. And then I'm adding in 2 teaspoons each of rosemary and thyme. Now, I should have taken that rosemary and grinded it up so it wasn't so big. And then I'm adding in a pound of pork sausage. Now, I did not like this sausage. I got it from Albertsons. It was not good, but nonetheless. Okay, so I'm just breaking that up. I'm breaking it up first before adding in the apples, and that's just because I like my meat to be like very chopped up small bits, and I don't want to like chop up my apple in the process, basically mushing it. So I did that, cooked it up first, then I added the apple in, gave it a nice stir. This doesn't need too much time. It just depends, I guess, how soft you want your apples. I wanted mine to be still have a little bit of texture to them, but I did season that with some salt and pepper as well. This recipe, you're supposed to add in some like 3/4 of like the 4-ounce package, so I'd say about 3 ounces of crumbled goat cheese, Well, let me tell you, I tasted this and it had good flavor, but I am very bad about textures of meat if they're not great quality, and I did not like this pork sausage. So this was not something I wasn't going to eat, so I was not adding in all my goat cheese and wasting like $5 in goat cheese just to not eat it. And my boyfriend's not the biggest fan of goat cheese, so he was fine with this, but it was just not a thing for me. I loved the flavor, but I did not like the texture of the sausage. So make sure you get a sausage that you like. My store was just out of what I would have normally got. So I'll definitely be trying this again. This is definitely a very winter, fall type of comfort food, and it was delicious flavor-wise. For this, I'm taking my large skillet, I'm putting it over like medium high heat, adding in a couple tablespoons worth of like vegetable oil, and then I'm adding in some cooked rice. This is maybe about 2.5 cups worth. That's about the amount that could work for the sauce. I wouldn't say much more could work for the sauce that I'm going to be using. I'd say anywhere from 2 to 2.5 cups. I'm not measuring here, I'm just eyeing it, so it's just around there. I broke that all up. I'm seasoning that with some salt and some pepper. Next, I'm taking a jar of this Goya Sofrito. You find this in like the Mexican or Hispanic aisle in the grocery store. And I'm pouring that whole jar into the rice. You might even put a little bit of water in there to kind of break up the last of that. But just go ahead and stir that into your rice. I was testing this out. I never really measure things like this. This is kind of like my throw together meals when I really just need something like to use up leftovers or stuff like that when I've got rice or chicken like leftover. So I mixed that all up. It worked out. It looked saucy enough. And I had some meal prep chicken, so I needed to use it up. I warmed it up a little bit. I chopped it up into some bite-sized pieces, and I stuck it in here, and I'm also adding in the last of that sauce that I like turned the jar over, and I finally got the last bit of that. I added in a can of corn and a can of rinsed and drained black beans. You can do this to taste, whatever you have leftovers of, go ahead and add it on in. If you got peppers, onions, that kind of stuff, you just want to use stuff up, this is great to put ground beef, ground turkey, just whatever leftovers. It's kind of like just like a skillet, real quick and easy. I added some cheddar cheese on the top of that and let it melt. I served this with my favorite hot sauce and sour cream and some of the Tostitos scoops. This was delicious. And I always love a bowl like this that kind of reminds you of like a taco style bowl. Now there's no taco seasoning in this, but it does have nice good flavors of cilantro and stuff like that in that sauce. We were heading home from Universal Studios this night, and we were driving, and we were in the city of Los Angeles, and I had been craving this for a while, and it's Phillipe's, the original. They make these dip sandwiches, like roast beef dip. They have lamb dips and pastrami dip as well, but we got the beef dip. We got double dipped. They also do wet. We're gonna do that next time because I really like their au jus. It is so good. And we got some of their like lemonade and their sun tea, some macaroni salad. They have amazingly delicious crunchy pickles, and their cheesecake is also so good. They serve different pies as well, but we had cheesecake this night and we were not disappointed. But this really hit the spot. It's definitely a classic for Los Angeles, and I loved it so much. The recipe that I'll have linked for you calls for 4-ounce pieces of chicken breast. Now, I had these larger chicken breasts, and I was just going to season them up on both sides and like half the recipe in my mind, but I didn't realize that they were calling for 4-ounce chicken breasts, which is pretty thin, so I did decide, I wanted to do that. I do like thinner chicken breasts anyways, so I did cut those in half to make them more like cutlets, and I re-seasoned the open sides, and now I am using their chicken seasoning. They have a link to that. They make it. It's like paprika, salt, pepper, different herbs, and I did make up a batch of that, so that's what I'm using here. You don't have to. You could season it how you like as well, but I thought that seasoning was really good. And now I'm placing these in a skillet, and I'm going to sear them for about a minute on each side. I know they say 2 minutes, but I did about a minute because I read in the comments on the recipe that people were saying that theirs were a little overcooked, and I didn't want that. But I still wanted that sear to keep the flavor in. So, yeah, and I did that in batches because, like I said, I thought I was going to only have 2 chicken breasts originally, and I didn't want to dirty another pan. I had already put oil in this one. While those were searing, I took a bowl, and to it I added a 1/2 tablespoon of olive oil, 1/4 cup of honey, and I do spray my measuring cup so that it comes out easier, and then I'll add in some Dijon mustard. Now it's a tablespoon that it calls for. I kind of doubled that because I didn't have the whole grain mustard it called for, so I kind of like put 2 of the Dijon mustard, and then added in 1 tablespoon of yellow mustard and a half a teaspoon of white vinegar, and then 1/8 teaspoon of dried paprika. And I mix that all together. I'm just going to combine all those ingredients till they're nice and well incorporated with each other. I placed the chicken in a 9x13 baking dish with some cooking spray on the bottom, and I'm just drizzling over half of this honey mustard sauce on one side here. Then I'll go ahead and flip them over and put the remaining other half of the sauce on the other side. Now I'm taking 3 sprigs of fresh rosemary. The recipe calls for 4. 3 worked for me. Whatever you've got will work for you as well. Just place them between the chicken breasts. And we're covering this with foil. I use these like silicone things that like lids that go on top of baking dishes. I just prefer that over foil. And I'm baking this at 375 degrees. The recipe says for 20 minutes and then to remove the cover and bake for 15 more minutes. That definitely is way too long. In total, I would say it was in the oven for me for like 20 minutes total. 15-20 minutes total. It took like 10 minutes to bake, and then maybe an additional 5 without the lid. 5 to 7 minutes without the lid. So definitely check that around that time, like halfway through, and just see like where you're at if you have a meat thermometer, which I highly suggest because they're really handy in the kitchen for moments like this. And then while those were baking, I went ahead and made up some asparagus. I took off the ends, I cleaned them up, and I drizzled them with some avocado oil, some of the Kinder's The Blend seasoning. If you don't have that, it's just basically salt, pepper, and garlic powder. Then I used some of the Weber's garlic parmesan seasoning, and I'm just using my tongs to kind of toss them around to get that seasoning all throughout there. And I air fried that at 400 degrees for 10 minutes. This is what the chicken looks like out of the oven. The honey mustard sauce is a little bit thin, but it does thicken up as it cools a bit. I just served this with some instant mashed potatoes and those asparagus. This was so delicious. Like, I really loved the flavor that this chicken had. That honey mustard sauce was delicious. Even my boyfriend was like, he liked it, and he doesn't like anything with mustard, but he really couldn't tell at all. It was just so flavorful. Really loved that a lot, and it paired really well with creamy mashed potatoes and those asparagus. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that little bell so you don't miss out on any future videos, and I hope you all are having a great day.